Hey guys, we're back with another Wine Wednesday recap video. Last week, Bobby Miller, aka Humblefish, joined us to talk about fish disease, medications, hydrogen peroxide, and so much more. You can find a link to the full episode in the comment section, along with a link to the after party that we don't usually share. This video provides the tank transfer method with hydrogen peroxide presentation that Bobby gave in a shorter version for someone who needs that information quickly. So please enjoy and check out our other videos for more.
It's a presentation on hybrid tank transfer method, which is a new quarantine protocol that myself and others have been working on. Okay, so I'll try to make this brief. So basically, before we can talk about hybrid tank transfer method, we first have to understand tank transfer method, which is where hybrid tank transfer method comes from. So to do tank transfer method, you basically need, and this is just an example of, this is just a 10-gallon aquarium. You can see a heater, thermometer, there's an air bubbler, and this, you can use this as a very simple quarantine tank. Now, to do tank transfer method, you need two of these. You need one of everything. You need two tanks, two heaters, two bubblers, because you're going to be transferring the fish from one tank to another. And I kind of dug this image up on the internet. This might be a little bit more fitting for your target audience, because this is maybe a little bit more what you could do for a Seahorse tank, for a quarantine tank, because it's got the fake plastic plants that I know sometimes I've seen used with seahorses. Okay, so the basics of tank transfer method is moving the fish every 72 hours. So on the first day, you place the fish in the initial quarantine tank, and then roughly 72 hours later, you transfer the fish to the new tank. The time that you do the transfer is unimportant, but you never must exceed the 72-hour window. The temperature and specific gravity of the new tank should match the old one perfectly, so you can just catch and release the fish with no acclimation, and you want to transfer as little water as possible with the fish. So as you can see here, you do the transfer. I mean, if we include the initial transfer, it's a total of it's a total of 5 times. So you have a day 1, day 4, day 7, day 10, and then day 13, when the fish is now ick-free, because that's what tank transfer method was originally developed for, was a prophylaxis treatment for ick. After transferring, you immediately sanitize the old tank and all equipment using bleach or vinegar. You rinse well, and you let air dry thoroughly before using. I actually like to blow a fan over the tank and equipment to ensure, proper and thorough drying. And so basically, this is kind of the reason why you need to have 2 of everything, because you don't really have time to sterilize the tank before the transfer. So you have to have a duplicate tank and equipment so that you can keep doing these transfers. This is like a little, and I don't know really if this would be appropriate for seahorses or not, but I'm not a big advocate of nets because of how fish get tangled up and damaged. So this is actually like a square plastic colander that you can use to transfer the fish during the transfers. If the hard plastic is an issue with seahorses, you can get I'm sure like a softer colander to use. Okay, so this is just some like overview of tank transfer methods. So this is a whole list of rules and everything, how to do it, but the top 3 are the most important. The transfers need to occur every 72 hours or less, not more. The total number of days to pass should be 12 or more, not less. A minimum of 4 transfers are required. So when I say 4 transfers, we're not counting the initial tank that the fish was put in, with more required if doing transfers more frequently than every 72 hours. If your schedule dictates that you have to do the transfers every 48 hours, every 24 hours, that's fine, so long as you reach 12 days with the transfers. So one thing I want to point out is, one detractions from using tank transfer method is the amount of salt used. And because, you do go through a lot of salt doing tank transfer method, but if you're sure that your display tank is pathogen free, you can actually use water from a stored water change to do tank transfer method. So it's kind of a way of recycling your DT water to use for quarantine. Okay. So that was the basis of tank transfer method. So how does hydrogen peroxide come into this? So hydrogen peroxide, and I know that peroxide, which I believe is 35%, is optimal, but that's not really accessible to most hobbyists. So you can actually use the 3% hydrogen peroxide that you see here that you can buy at Walmart or most drugstores. I show here, you're going to need, for measuring purposes, you can see that here. I prefer to do the, when I do the peroxide baths, which we'll get to in a moment, I like to do it like in a glass bowl, like you see here. You can also do them right in the transfer tank about 30 minutes before you make the transfer, if that's just easier for you. Or if you want to maybe take a gallon or 2 gallons of water out, put it in the bowl and do the hydrogen peroxide bath while you're removing the old transfer tank and setting up the new transfer tank. That works as well. Okay, so these kind of give you, and this is all on my website and my forum, but basically this gives you the directions for doing the peroxide baths. The dosage is basically 20 milliliters of 3% H2O2 per 1 gallon of salt water. At current time, I am like, so basically you want to have the salt water you're going to use, you want to have it pre-oxygenated and set at the right temperature. We're still kind of trying to figure out just how much does, like, running aeration, like an air stone during the bath, how much that actually degrades it or not. So I'm just telling people, look, for the time being, let's play it safe and let's just create no gas exchange or aeration during the peroxide baths to maintain the concentration at, it's actually 150 ppm. Okay. Okay, and then, so this is how we kind of put it all together. So it's like, okay, so now we know how to do tank transfer method. How do we incorporate hydrogen peroxide? So if you kind of look at this, day one, everything is the same. You place the fish in the tank, but then 30 minutes before you're going to make the transfer, you would dose hydrogen peroxide either in that glass bowl that I just showed or in the transfer tank itself. And so you would do that 30 minutes before. You only expose the fish to hydrogen peroxide for 30 minutes. Day 4 is the same. You don't now, we have had at least one case now where flukes did slip through this method. So that's why you kind of see at the end of day 4 here, you do have the option of using ProxiPro or General Cure to do deworming. I don't know if it's actually a problem or a one-off thing or how big of an issue flukes are for, monogenians are for seahorses. But so you have this on day 4. And then on day 7, you do it again. And again, on day 7, you want to do the 30-minute peroxide bath. So the whole point is that hydrogen peroxide is dosed twice, 6 days apart, and for a maximum of 30 minutes. Now, you'll also see in here that you could use, and I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but you could actually use formalin instead of hydrogen peroxide. I feel that peroxide and formalin have the same killing capacity when it comes to parasites. So that's just another option to consider. But if we're kind of staying with this, at the tail end of day 1 and at the tail end of day 7, you're going to do the hydrogen peroxide bath. Okay, so then the question is, well, why are we using hydrogen peroxide? So this is an abstract from one study that I've done research on. There's some other studies to back it up, and it's a little sloppy, but I highlighted at the bottom. You can see, if I can just minimize this. Oh, okay. So basically you're seeing here that if you read the highlighted part, that 75 or 150 milligrams per liter, which is ppm, eliminated velvet trophonts without causing loss to fish. And this was in a field trial, a single treatment of 75 ppm. When it was applied 6 days later, it reduced velvet trophonts to a non-detectable level. So this is the study that we're basing it on. It was done on Pacific threadfin, where they infected them with velvet trophonts, and this proved that peroxide cleared it doing 2 peroxide baths 6 days apart. There's some other studies that back this up, but this is basically the primary basis. I also believe that if 150 ppm hydrogen peroxide can eliminate velvet trophons, I feel there's a strong possibility that it can eliminate other pathogens like brook, flukes, perhaps tubularians. So, and also being that hydrogen peroxide is an antiseptic, it could possibly clear bacterial diseases. So this kind of becomes what we're hoping, and it's still in development, more of an all-encompassing treatment that you can use on fish in lieu of using copper or other medications.
Is that for the seahorse people watching, one thing that people with regular swimming fish don't think much about is heaters with seahorses can be problematic. And they'll hitch to them. And unfortunately, their instinctive response is when something is wrong, instead of letting go, they tighten their grip. So it's very common in the winter months to see people asking for help because their seahorses got severe burns from heaters. So if you are going to use a heater in a seahorse tank, it needs to be covered in such a way that seahorses can't burn themselves and hitch to it. You mentioned the 3%. I don't know if you're aware, 12% peroxide is readily available if you go to a beauty salon supply place. You can get what's called 40 volume developer. And if you get clear developer, it's nothing more than plain 12% peroxide.
Oh,
And
I did not know that.
you can buy it by the gallon, and it ends up being more economical than buying a whole bunch of 3%.
So it's reasonably close to about it, because what I'm targeting is 150 ppm. And the reason, just to explain that I guess why I'm so attracted to 3% peroxide is because that's something that any hobbyist can just get in the middle of the night at Walmart or a drugstore, because I run into scenarios where people contact me on my forum or whatnot, and they're like, I'm losing everything. I've got velvet in my DT, everything's dying. And I know that the fish need temporary relief because copper doesn't provide temporary relief. So the peroxide is something that, instead of telling, okay, well, order formalin or order, another drug that's going to take 2 or 3 days to come in the mail, I know that they can go, anytime, day or night, get the 3% the 3% H2O2, run the fish through a 30-minute peroxide bath to provide temporary relief as the fish are en route to QT. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm saying that a single 30-minute peroxide bath is only useful for temporary relief of velvet, brook, and other diseases. However, I'm more confident that if you do hybrid tank transfer method and administer 2 peroxide baths 6 days apart, I'm far more confident that that is a replacement for many of the medications we use, especially copper, which I'm really trying to get. I'm trying to get away from, and I'm trying to get hobbyists away from, because I hate it. I hate copper so much. But I understand it's still the standard for quarantine, but hybrid tank transfer method with the 2 peroxide baths was actually designed to replace that.
All right, happy Wine Wednesday, everyone.